Hello.
Hello, Glen.
Hi. How are you?
I'm alright, I guess.
That doesn't sound too enthusiastic.
Yeah, I'm dealing with, day-to-day things.
Yeah. Boring.
Huh?
Boring.
Worried, you said?
Boring.
Boring?
Yeah. Boring day-to-day things.
Boring day-to-day things. Yeah, that, but I learn new things every day.
Yeah.
That's, not everything's boring. I guess my life is not that boring when you know about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's not boring, I guess. But,
No, if there's one thing about searching for truth and answers, there's always something around each corner.
Yeah.
A lot of it expected, some unexpected. But that's the fun of it all.
Yeah. I was thinking how, like, they talk about, like, the union and everything, like how, the, union with the people back to hermaphrodite, but this thing. But I think I think it also could be an allegory for the union or that reunion with the Neanderthal and clan mother inside the new slave.
Yeah.
Thinking that sounded makes sense to me.
Well, they need a slave that can sleep 50 years, wake up and look around, report back, and if necessary, begin a colony until they're resupplied. If not, wish them all a happy rest of their life, and within 40 years they should all be dead.
Yeah. Yeah, I sent you an email. I guess I figured it was a little long, right?
Yeah.
Probably read through that stuff already. Yeah. It was Bacon's when the New Atlantis, and he talks about the
advancements in learning and stuff.
Yeah, but this one was he talked, and that one I sent you. He talks about like the sciences that are more advanced stuff. And he talks about like underground submarines, underground vessels.
Yeah, I have that book, The New Atlantis.
And I noticed I was reading through another book, and they mentioned this god named Dagon, and how it's all related to like preserver underwater. They were saying, and it goes to Jonah and Noah. They were saying
number 2 is number 1, so our Dagon is the word dragon.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, but I thought it was just like an allegory, like, because what they were explaining, like, it seemed like they were talking about submarines.
Well, submarines would be their way of flying because they live below the sea, and a submarine in water is not much different than a spacecraft flying through space. It's just their limitations. So, but you learn a lot of lessons in submarines that are applicable to space travel.
How old do you think the submarine is?
How old? Well, I suspect they had submarines probably in
the time of India?
40,000 BC.
Okay.
And dirigibles, like they have the ones flying over football fields. I suspect they had those as well. That would have been the obvious method of flying in the olden days. And because they moved a lot of heavy stuff around, that would be the obvious method for lifting things. Taking the heads to Easter Island, that kind of stuff.
So, like, Bacon, he made it obvious, like, all this stuff is, and I know whenever they release something to the public, it's a lot older than what they're really saying, because he was basically releasing things.
He was their vehicle for the distribution of information during his time, and he was the contributing managing editor of the King James Version of the Bible, and also for all of Shakespeare's works.
Yeah.
Since Shakespeare never left the place he was in London, he could not have known about Denmark or northern Italy or whatever, places he talked about. So it had to be Bacon bringing the information forward. His links were to the Persians. He spoke Persian fluently, and that would be the direction in which the information would come out of India and Antarctica.
Have you done any in-depth research on these civilizations and how they work?
In depth is
too low.
A word that would mean it's not possible.
Yeah.
Because in depth, if you do anything in depth, it takes a lifetime.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do the overview of 60 to 100,000 years of civilization, you're not really going to go into what you would refer to as in depth on any single topic. Yeah. Basically doing a big picture.
Yeah, I want to know how you do this. I'll find these things too. You'll find these links with words and stuff like that. But you're able to paint a picture, say a story just from these links.
Well, that's because these links basically unlock a memory.
Oh.
And it's the memory of the things gone by that tell you the bigger story. It's like, Dr. Wilder Penfield used to do studies on the brain at McGill University. And he found that as he touched certain portions of the brain and the patient was awake, they would not only recall certain events, they would relive them. The entire picture with all of the sensory activity was linked to recalling an event, and then it launched everything else. So it's no different whether you do it mechanically by touching the brain or you do it by awakening a part of the brain by finding a link. No doubt in my mind that I remember places and times and stuff like that without getting involved into the personality thing. People who say they've lived in the past always want to be somebody important, like Cleopatra, or, Caesar, or Jesus, or what have you. Yeah. I don't see any of that, day-to-day story. I see the big picture of where I was, what I did.
So if you were to take, say, somebody were to take your DNA and basically just make a new version of you, and as that new version of you gets older, you think it'll remember, memories?
Well, that's what I am. I mean, I'm basically a new copy of some old DNA.
Yeah.
I'm basically being told that my DNA is original Cro-Magnon.
And most people around us, what would you say about their DNA?
Well, DNA is constantly being recombined. People live and people die.
Mm-hmm.
Some people's DNA is retained by nature for use again, and that means it can be recycled into other living things by being absorbed in the grass, that kind of thing. If you ever walk by in a field and you see a dead animal on the ground,
mm-hmm.
and you leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, as you go by, as I do, because I have to cut the grass a lot,
yeah.
You notice that the grass where that animal was is greener
mm-hmm.
than the rest of it. So obviously the chemistry of that individual has been absorbed into the grass. So along comes a cow and eats that grass, and along comes a butcher who puts it in the stores, and somebody eats that. And you have the transfer of DNA.
You don't need much, right?
Eh?
You don't need, like, a lot of it, right? Just a little bit.
Stem cells, you don't even use it. You just make more cells from the ones you have, and you use those cells, and the originals are retained. So it's cloning using different parts of the body, whether it's marrow in the bone or saliva or sperm, have different values. And the closer you get to stem cells, the more you can make copies of the person over and over again.
So if you use something other than stem cells, what does that do?
Well, you'll run out. You'll be able to make a copy, and it'll last for a while. Then you make another one, and when you're out of material, you're out of that person's DNA. That allegory is given in the Hebrew Bible in the story of Enoch, where after receiving the plate from God underground, the whole story of Enoch shifts to people who live longer. And it says one person lives 300 and some years, another one lives 700 and some years, and Methuselah lives 960 some years, and they stop there. And that's all an allegory for, they made a test using DNA, and they were able to replicate the one person maybe 6 or 7 times, and he lasted 300 years. Not the same person, but the same DNA. Whereas the second one was a better quality of DNA, and he lasts 700 and some years, either better quality or they had more of it. And the third one is Methuselah, who basically lives 964 years, 963 years, I think it is. The allegory there is he's basically being copied from stem cells, and therefore he will live longer.
Like I notice when I'm reading through the Masonic book, they never really mention Enoch. He's not really talked about. They talk more on Noah and
yeah,
and these.
because Noah was the genetic engineer after the Ice Age.
Oh, and Enoch was before?
Enoch was before him.
Oh.
He was the guy who brought forward the information, and Noah was his grandson, I believe.
Oh, that's why he had the ark, because it was after.
Yeah.
Oh. When did you get like hints that they started growing their own, like these people?
Well, obviously they had to do it in order to divide men from women.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be a process of genetic engineering.
But it wasn't as perfected, I think.
Well, it was perfected in the sense of dividing genders, but it was basically the first step away from cloning, simply reproducing the same person. It was the beginning of making other people rather than copies of the same clan mother. To do any of that, you would need a computer.
Yeah, because it's how it's so like laid out, how they do it. A human being is how it's so like methodical and well calculated.
So their hint is always that the Neanderthaler was frozen in ice.
Yeah, the social engineering, they were like frozen in time, basically.
Yeah.
Separated.
Couldn't move forward, therefore was limited to the amount of information he could deal with. And if you only deal with one topic, then for thousands of years you become an expert in that particular field.
And I think like at that time, like the planet was totally different than what it is.
Well, the planet has gone through 4 ice ages. So,
is that publicly known?
Yeah. So it all depends what comes flying by in the solar system. If it's hot, then you get global warming. If it's cold, you get an ice age. Because what it does is extend the ellipse of the orbit of the Earth, keeping it either closer to the sun or further away from the sun. And what it picks up when it's further away will enhance the seasons on Earth. If it's cold, then the time that there is ice is much longer during a year than if the thing is warm, where you would get global warming. So the visit of Alder Amin, which is about to make us really hot.
How many thousand years? Was it 7 or 5?
What?
7 or 1,000? 7 or 5,000? Yes, I wasn't sure.
For the passing of a polar star?
Yeah, the new one, Alder Amin. Well,
all of the hints within astrology and astronomy are that a polar star has an effect upon the Earth, either visual or weather-wise, for a period of somewhere between 10 and 12,000 years.
Yeah, I was looking, I was watching a computer simulation not too long ago on supernova.
Yeah, that's an explosion of a star.
Yeah, it was incredible, man. It was pretty powerful. Yeah. And they have another one they called hypernova, and they said that was like when you're directly under it.
Yeah.
And you said that they're going to induce this?
Well, not a supernova, because a supernova blows the planet to smithereens. A nova only deals with the surface. It does not affect the core or the mantle. But it can cause everything else on the surface to melt, like continents and the oceans can mix and become quicksand. However, in this particular plan they have, which is based upon the lessons learned in the past, that when a planet or a star such as Alder-Amin comes by, the people on the surface would take refuge underground to get away from the extensive heat. So in order not to allow people to go underground, this time they want to light the coal seam and thereby create fires underground.
But that's not going to happen till like 12. First they're going to create and induce nova, and then all the means coming. So it's like
they can create the nova tomorrow because they can light the underground fires by a collision activated by a particle accelerator. That would
so it'll be a nova from the inside rather than from the outside.
Yeah. That would basically be the first step. It's in the Bible, it's dealt with as Gomorrah rather than Sodom. Sodom already happened. Gomorrah is going to happen. So go Roma. Yeah. And what it's all about is fire and brimstone. Well, fire underground causes brimstone. Brimstone are the explosion of gases and petroleum from underground that pop out to the surface and thereby create smoke and heat and the greenhouse effect. Plus, it burns everything.
Why do you think they would destroy everything on the surface if all that means coming anyway?
Alder-Amin would send people down underground.
Yeah,
and they would survive until its passing starts losing its effect. That's what they've done in the past. They don't want the people who are on the surface of the earth to survive. They want a different kind of person, a conglomerate slave, and therefore the people who are already here become a nuisance to the future goals of the computers who are running the show.
I was just watching a movie, Star Trek Nemesis. They show all the little allegories and hints about this whole story, and I just think it made me think how like them going around space in a ship was basically this new slave conglomerate all in this ship.
Yeah.
You call a bag lady.
Yeah. The difference is they're showing it as if they were human beings.
But they have all the different races.
A colony.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be a colony. They're going to be pods of one.
Yeah. That's all you need, right?
Yeah. Because you got so many places to go looking. You don't need the hassle of sending up people who might fight or fall in love or what have you. Yeah. So you just send one. And you send one in every imaginable direction. Billions of them go off over time, each in a different angle, exploring the solar system and eventually the universe.
But this one, I guess it's correct in saying it's one because it's a conglomerate of everything held in one, but it's chemistry different because it's male, female, and Neanderthal.
Exactly.
So what's the number of the chemistry of like Neanderthal?
Well, that's why they show the symbol of the letter Y.
2 in 1.
Yeah, 2 in 1. Male, female, added to the longer shaft. The Y is basically like upside down.
Mm-hmm. That's why you always, when you first finding out who the culprits were, you always use that calling the liberators.
Yeah.
And they are 2-1 because they show you that in the Bible because he's both God and the devil. It's 2-1.
Yeah. Everything's 2-1. And it has harm and assist principles.
Yeah. Remus and Romulus.
You're a chemist.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, when I was watching this movie, it reminded me of Remus and Romulus and Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
And off this concept, they make whole systems and philosophies off of all this.
It's the basic thesis of it all.
Yeah.
It's the premise of life. Is you start off with 2, you divide it, and then you reassemble it in a better way.
The 10-2 is then really number 1, and that's the one they're gonna send out in space.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's like a puzzle. I don't know. It's like the word. It's like interconnected.
Yeah, it's a jigsaw.
Yeah. It's just I don't know. Finding people like who can. I guess everybody, because all those people who come on your farm, do they give you insight into?
Of course, because everybody's brain functions differently, and everybody having seen similar things, it excites different memories in their mind, and they see it from that point of view. That's why one person is never enough to give a complete answer.
That's why you need that math, critical math.
Yeah.
All different types of variables, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Once you put the 13 together, then you have every point of view. If you're dealing with people with functioning brains.
So do you think, like, nowadays, or, like, at least in the past, there were more people with functioning brains before, I don't know, say,
they had functioning brains, but they didn't have the knowledge to use them properly.
Yeah.
The more we gain the knowledge base, the more they have to inhibit our brain from functioning the way it was originally designed.
Yeah. Huh. And there's a lot of people, I can, like I see people who don't know about this stuff, but they have functioning brains, and a lot of them, take drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
Years ago.
But they're confused. Their brain is telling them something, and they look around and can't see it being applied. So rather than live in a world of drunks, they become drug addicts themselves and live in their own world.
This is well, that was like that was what my problem was in high school. I did stuff, experimented. I guess I went through that, and everybody around me doing it. But I don't know, for some reason I was different. Like most people, they just stay in that world, and I just looked at it all. I was like, can't do this.
Once you've done drugs, and alcohol is just another drug, there comes a point where you say, "Is that all there is?"
Yeah.
And No, there is more, but you can't see it while you're in that state.
Mm-hmm.
So you make a conscious decision to set that stuff aside and grow up. You know? Deal with reality is much more exciting than waking up with a hangover.
Mm-hmm. It's just like you start dealing with then you see people who are like still like in that regress state, like children.
Yeah.
Around.
Hey, go to a tavern and listen to the conversation.
Oh man, I can't do it.
It's silly.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah.
And yet, when you're drunk, it all sounds normal.
Another movie I saw, pretty sick movie, man. I was watching Caligula.
Yeah.
I don't know how close to historical.
Well, it's supposed to be untrue. It's supposed to be that he was in fact a guy who wanted to do the right thing. So history treats him badly and calls him all kinds of names, but that in fact he was a person of ethical conduct and who was trying to get to the bottom of the problem.
Wow, they just totally reversed it, and he's just...
Yeah.
But, on the other hand, I've seen how, they had all these orgies and stuff. That I don't think that's too far from the truth, how Rome degenerated.
Yeah.
Like that. Because I see it now. It's just a more sophisticated form of degeneracy, I guess.
Gotta remember, Caligula has gula in the name.
Gula. Gulag?
Yeah, gula is like ragu, rigo.
Mm.
And, it's basically a hint at the things to come rather than the things that were.
And then in that word, although I mean, it's saying the red one man, I guess. But when they're saying this red, are they referring to genetic engineering?
Well, alder is a tree. It is the basic deciduous tree.
Mm-hmm.
Trees do not grow anywhere. Deciduous trees need to grow under the protection of coniferous trees. So when you're dealing with the word alder, which is also the word elder, if you change it feminine to masculine, what it's saying is of the second generation, the oldest is feminine. Now that's leaving the door wide open for saying, therefore, of the first generation was the oldest of them masculine. If it was masculine, then how did it reproduce?
So you're talking about Neanderthal and clan mother?
Yeah.
But they were twins, you were saying that. They basically were around the same time, so how can one be older?
Yeah. That's why it doesn't make any sense. Because how could Neanderthaler have reproduced itself when it first began unless it too was a hermaphrodite? Now, an event may have come about in a twin clan mother that caused the splitting of the genders, and the Neanderthaler then became a two-gender society, which would explain how it was then able to assist the clan mothers in Africa to do something likewise. But the ancient history of the Neanderthaler is very complicated. What we know suggests that they were a fairly large number, and from that number, a number in the vicinity of 144,000 were in fact frozen in time and then brought back to life. And yet these individuals are the ones we know today as Neanderthals.
And the other ones died out, you think?
The other ones were basically their assistants. And at one stage of the game, I would suggest that they decided to get rid of their assistants, but in fact could not until they had replacements. And Clan Mother would have provided some assistance to them over an intermediary period of time. And then when they broke with Clan Mother, that's when they made Cro-Magnon to be their assistant. So they go through a number of evolutions, and all the time are passing the knowledge on to computers. And at one stage of the game, the computer decides, I don't need these people. I can do this on my own, and says, hey, instead of limiting the damage to the surface of the Earth the next time around, let's allow damage to take place all the way down to the upper mantle. Since the computers are located within the upper mantle and are protected from water and fire, according to all the allegories, they will survive. But the Moho discontinuity, along with the plates of the Earth and the oceans, would basically be destroyed, becoming black water.
With the word, this thing, Cro-Magnon, the crow, is it like, is the raven the same thing, or is it like part of the same?
Well, raven is basically Ave, genetically engineered version.
Oh, really? Because
the virgin birth.
Yeah. Because when you see the raven that I was reading a little bit on, it said that it lives up to like
Alan Poe's raven.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that too. Yeah, and they said that it lives it could live like 100 years. They said up to 100 years. And yeah, and then when you say nevermore in his poem,
nevermore, Lenore basically means never, nevermore the black man. Le Noir.
Yeah.
So what is being suggested is that there is a movement away from the black African, and what obviously, because of the way they set up slavery in the old days, they wanted that movement to be a halfway point between the Caucasian and the African.
And the first
basically makes the tan is tan.
The first country to use that as the name. Was it? Because I was looking up in India, the religion, they called it Hindustan. Like they first, and then I guess over time they had sex. Yeah.
Expanded to all the other Istans as they were creating more and more people in the Himalayas and distributing them. Of course, the places closest to the Himalayas would carry the word Istan. Nazi, saint. So it's all suggesting that they are fascist in their belief,
Mm-hmm.
which basically means military command, and they would be ancient, viewed as ancient holy men and saints, that they would create a mirror image in the word Tain, T-A-I-N. They would, in fact, not be what they seem to be in the word ain't.
Yeah. How's that linked to the word S-T-A-I-N, stain?
Yeah. And they would be stained in color, basically being mulatto.
It seems like in that book, The New Atlantis, like Bacon hints that these new science, like how they practice all this science and stuff, seems like these are happening in like monasteries and underground and mountains and stuff.
Yeah, well, that was the Taoist monastery, the Buddhist monastery, the Zen monasteries of Japan.
And all those people, and he hints that too, he's like people like Columbus, and all the inventors of things were just people, I guess, who served them, and they just gave them credit for something else.
Sure.
Yeah. It's like, this book is like, I showed that to some other people, and they're like, oh, well, it's just, why is this this is being made public to us, and yada, 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 like, this is, you're not,
yeah, but you got to
we're being led down a path, and
this is in the 1600s.
Yeah, 1626.
Yeah. So you're not basically dealing with the end result of the industrial age, but yet you're being told beforehand what the industrial age will bring about.
Yeah. Because all the things they're talking about is science you see right here around you.
Yeah.
So
because he's getting the information from Persia, and Persia gets the information directly from the Himalayas, and therefore they all know about genetic engineering and all that stuff. And they manufacture religion as a way of divide and conquer.
So what they do, they sort of like do, it's like a red herring, like a distraction. Like they'll have a civilization that's really powerful, it's known, but the real stuff is being done in a little place called the Himalayan Mountains. So you don't even hear anything.
Yeah.
Empires
serve a purpose, and their purpose comes and goes, and the empire must go with it. Yeah. So they basically funnel information and finance and all of that into a group of people, build up their military and technological might, and then at the appropriate moment they do technology transfers, move everything out of that place, destroy it internally with illegal immigration and credit crunch and all of that stuff. You know. So empires can be built and they can be destroyed when they're done. And as far as anybody could see, the northern hemisphere's purpose is finished. So we have to be removed first, but all of the things we learn must be double-checked before it becomes part of the final program. So the southern hemisphere, having fewer people, is being kept as the beta test site for another 1,000 years. And they'll be removed as well, along with the Moho discontinuity, and then everything will stop probably for 10 to 12,000 years, while Alder Amid comes and goes, and then as the conditions return to normal, the computers will generate the new slave and use some for its own purposes. They normally have 3 levels of people around them so that the outside world has no direct contact with them.
Because in these movies, too, it gives you, like, hints, because they always show, like in Star Trek, they show this planet that's half light, half dark, and on the dark side, they had this race of people who, they called them lithium mines, and they dug underground. And these mines, it looked like something underground, like...
Well, you can't be fooled by appearance. Genetic engineering, by its very nature, suggests that you can make anything. It's even being discussed in Bacon's New Atlantis. The color, the gender, the size, all of that stuff is irrelevant except for the task at hand. So whatever the task is will determine what the person looks like.
There's some other books out. Another person who looks at your work. I seen her posted on the internet. It was some stuff like some books on, like, a lot of books came out like on like this hollow earth theory, they call it.
Yeah. That was really silly. And
I thought it was just allegory or something. But.
It was a basic cover-up for anybody who was proposing that there might be a society that lived underground. So, it's like Hollywood. They always make movies to criticize and make people look stupid if they're suggesting anything that the system doesn't want. Certainly, Mel Gibson's conspiracy theory movie demonstrated that in a very direct way to my approach to doing things. Since the movie began by killing the subscribers to the guy's paper.
Well, in these movies, all I see is just telling me what's coming down the path. It's just telling. It's so like it's crazy when you think about it. You live in a world where they are telling you, but not telling you in the way people are used to getting told things.
Yeah.
And you can understand that language, and other people are saying, "Well, how do you what do you talk like?" One guy was saying it's like they were misleading people by telling people this, but nobody can see it except a select few. So I guess you gotta always keep that in mind that if you're used to looking at these things.
You always have to know that part of their fun comes from telling people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they don't want people to know enough that they do something about it.
Yeah. This is just like when I'd watch, when I was young, I'd watch cartoons like Superman, all these things, and then the bad guy would be like, yes, and just tell the whole plan. He would just tell his whole plan.
Remember that Superman always went to the telephone company for instructions.
Yeah.
He only became powerful once he was backed up by a phone booth.
Yeah. And yeah, I was watching a while ago, like a Batman or Robin one, and it was like the old one. And when you look at their costumes, man, these guys are wearing stockings and little tight shorts and stuff. These and yeah, but they show that like how he was a philanthropist, Bruce Wayne,
Yeah.
and you know, like, he liked to go in a cave, his altar. He'd go.
And he had a butler who would watch over him.
Yeah.
And a Catmobile.
Yeah. Yeah, they always show these little hints. Movies and stuff.
Instead of having the Catmobile being a communication system, they had it as a transportation system.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn more about like you seem to know more about like
I lived it.
Yeah, you live longer. So.
Difficult for a lot of people to accept that fact, but it's not for me.
But how that must have been more intense? Because you said you really grasped everything at 47. So for it to always just come tumbling down at 47, just to all hit you.
Well, 47, I started to sober up. And by 57, I knew what was going on. And by 67, I could explain it to other people.
Oh.
So
well, you got pretty good at that.
Transition that took place.
Well, you got pretty good at like just telling the story like that.
Well, I see it as a story, so I just tell people what I see. Everything to me is like a plate of glass for each 1,000 years. And they're all piled one on top of the other. And I look back in time by looking through these plates of glass. Not only can I position events in the past, but I can see them in their relationships to things that came before and things that come later.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. On the post put a while ago. It's like the Cain and Abel inside everybody. Like Cain is the reasoning, and for now, and then you go into the past and think long term, using the Abel part of you. I guess is that what they mean by able men? Young able men? Oh, man.
Abel, Ma Bell.
Yeah.
Ma Bell. The communications network.
But they don't, in America, they wouldn't call them Ma Bell. Well, we used to have Bell as a phone company, but then...
Yeah, that's how they disguise it. They broke it up and called it AT&T, which is basically the number 8 when you phonetically pronounce it.
Eight.
AT&T.
8. Yeah.
And 8, the new 8, is what they're making. Is the new slave is a squared 8 instead of a round 8.
Oh, man. Yeah, when you look at the symbology too of like the things that like I see like the symbols like I don't know, they like talk to your mind. I don't know how to describe it, but like when you look at them and like the DNA symbol, and I think I told you this before. Like I was looking at the amber sand, and you look at it backwards.
Yeah.
And it's DNA, and it looks like a DNA strand that's cut off.
Yeah. Ampersand is basically a play on amber. Amber is the color yellow. Amber is the color of transition.
Oh. So these colors that were picked to use in traffic lights, they weren't picked haphazardly.
No. Green is going towards the future.
Yeah.
Red is leaving the past behind.
But why do we stop? Okay.
You have to stop while it's moving in front of you, while it's got the right of way. But once it's out of the way, then you get to go forward. And you're always going on green. So green land produces the eggs, and the snow pea is green, which is the iPod, and everybody is into a green revolution.
Why would they make money green?
Because it is the thing that advances the plant. They only make it green in the U.S., though.
Because
every place else has gone to multicolored money.
So yeah, I was looking and the picture, like the Desdemona, because you sent one in a post, and I think it's when you actually look at the pictures and try to, like, I guess, use your imagination. But there's some other ones like I'm gonna need some help on, like the whole letter alphabet. Like I can, you know.
Yeah, well, you need to be in the milieu, you know, in the place where it's being talked about all the time. Much of this, just, you can't do it on your own. It has to be linked to some event when you're talking about it.
But we can talk about it all day on the phone, but it's not going to do it.
It doesn't
like
basically link it to anything. Yeah. That's the problem. Osmosis is the best way of teaching. As you're moving along through the day-to-day activity, things pop up, and you put it in the context of the code. And after a while, it becomes second nature. It's like having learned another language.
Yeah, well, I need money to get up there, and
the time will come.
Yeah, it's gonna come. I want to do it before this year's over, and wintertime's not good for you, right?
Well, wintertime limits the ability to get around. Yeah. So, you know, it's not useless, but it's not the same thing, because much of this is linked to nature. And winter is the time when nature basically goes to sleep. You don't get to see the plants and the animals all acting together in concert with human beings in the same way. When everything is the same color, everything is the same temperature, and it's cold. I love winter time because of my body structure. I even sweat in winter when it's 20 below zero.
I mean, doesn't the body get used to these things? And
I think we're all different. You know, some people perspire. I sweat. I couldn't go to dances when I was young and stay there for more than the first or second dance. Then I'd have to go home because I'd be soaking wet.
Well, and I sweat during the winter, like, I guess when I have all the hot things on.
Yeah. Well,
I'm walking.
You build heat not only from the clothes you have on, because you can be cold with 15 layers of clothes on you. The most important heat mechanism comes from food. So when you eat, you get warm from the inside out. Clothes can't do that for you. Even blankets on a bed, you can wake up in the middle of the night and have 10 blankets on you and you're still cold. And what you need is to put food in your body so that your body can produce the internal heat that doesn't happen. Preventing cold does not make heat.
You know, I know something with me, maybe it's not a good thing, but I can't sleep. Like if I don't eat anything or like drink a glass of milk, it keeps me up if I have an empty stomach.
Yeah, because you're uncomfortable if you're cold. Body needs food in order to make all of the systems function. So your heart pumping, your lungs working, all of that needs energy. If you go to bed without eating, you're depriving everything. That's why they say, malnutrition will cause children to grow up handicapped.
I look at food differently now, like especially that I work now. Yeah. I've been working every day. Like, it's like a battery for this pocket of time.
Yeah.
Because all I do is just burn it off. Yeah.
Well, it's my bedtime, Gert.
It's time for you to go.
Yeah, I got to have a snack and then go to bed.
All right, good.
Okay, we'll talk to you again.
All right, bye.
Bye.